Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the show today. We have special guest Jason Bassler. And Jason well, he's one of the co-founders of the Free Thought Project. And I've heard about that before, as I'm sure many of you have, but I want to get the details from Jason. How did the Free Thought Project start? What is it all about? I think people sometimes get it confused like Project Libertas and maybe some other organizations.
The Free
So
State Project. We get
yeah,
that sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
different than that. But yeah, let's hear the details. What's it all about?
Well, Jeff, I got to commend you for getting the name correct. A lot of people have a tongue twister, saying the name. So, yeah, the Free Thought Project. I know it's a little challenging, but you hit the nail on the head there. Well, first of all, man, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I have been an admirer of your organization for quite a while now, and I have a lot of respect for it. It feels like there's a lot of people who talk about the theoretical and the philosophy of voluntarism, but you're actually trying to put it in action, as the name suggests,
Mhm.
and manifesting it, which not enough people are doing. So I very much appreciate that, and
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of respect, a lot of support for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. That's actually kind of why we started as our founder, Logan Davies. He got tired of people just saying, "Oh, you just talk about this online, but you're not doing anything." So he was like, "All right, fine."
Let's do something. Let's do it. Let's go.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, man, thank you for asking. And again, thanks for having me on the Free Thought Project. We started this project back in 2013, myself and Matt Agarist. And before that, I was involved with some activism in my youth. I was in my early 20s when the Iraq War kicked off. I was down in the streets. I'm from the Bay Area of California,
Mm.
so I was down in the streets in San Francisco protesting, doing all that kind of stuff. But somewhere around 2011, I was very inspired by the Occupy Wall Street movement. And I realized at that point that I have all the information I need at my fingertips. And in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. So what was my, what am I holding? What's the issue? Why can't I, learn about some of this stuff? Why am I stuck in this mindset of being ignorant? So I just decided to go full bore and started learning as much as I could about our political system, everything about what was going on currently during the Occupy Wall Street movement. And during that time, I was inspired by Dr. Ron Paul, which today is his birthday. So cheers to Dr. Ron Paul.
That's
But
right. I
yeah,
forgot.
today is his birthday. So it pretty much after that point, I was doing some stuff for the Ron Paul campaign. I was trying to help, promote his 2012 candidacy for president. And I realized very shortly that boots on the ground, while it's great and very much appreciate when people do, we can reach a lot more people through the internet. That was kind of this epiphany I had. And of course, back then, that was like the golden age of social media, right? Because we had all the reach, there wasn't all the censorship, it wasn't the fact checkers and stuff.
Mm.
So I pretty much made it my mission to just absorb as much information as I could, learn about as many political philosophies as I could, and eventually, with Ron Paul's support, it kind of funneled me into libertarianism and voluntarism. And so I realized very shortly after that I needed to be sharing the information that I was learning about. I had to get it out there. I wanted to educate other people, inspire other people, motivate other people. So I had a couple Facebook pages, even a Tumblr account or two, if you could believe that.
Mhm.
Tumblr, good old Tumblr.
Mhm.
But I met Matt Agarist, and we decided to create the Free Thought Project, which more or less focuses on government accountability, that the daunting task of trying to keep government accountable and everything that surrounds that. So we engaged in some of the conspiracy theory stuff. We were very heavy into the police accountability movement at that time. Of course, you got to remember this was like 2011, 2012. This is before Black Lives Matter. This is before a lot of the national protests that were happening. But it was interesting. It was a topic that very much interested me. It was something that I saw during the Occupy Wall Street movement. I saw a lot of police brutality, heavy-handed police tactics, and it just didn't sit right with me. It didn't sit. It wasn't the America that I knew. I always thought that police were supposed to be here to protect us, to defend our rights. Turns out that was all, just stuff they were telling us in our public schools. And I made it my mission at that point to try to do whatever I could to amplify the police accountability message, share as much police brutality, misconduct, abuse of authority information as I could. And it grew exponentially, very, very fast. I was very surprised by that. Me and Matt were. In fact, the Free Thought Project took off around 2013, 2014. I think we were within the top 300 websites in the US at one point, just because we were bringing in so much traffic, talking about a lot of this information and a lot of the stories. And I think what distinguished us from others was that we were talking about police accountability information from more of a libertarian point of view. And a lot of what was going on during that time was the police accountability more from the leftist view. And which, is fine. They get a lot of stuff right. There's some stuff they get wrong about police accountability. But there seemed to be a demand. Like, people were very much interested in learning about what was going on within law enforcement and how it turned into the standing army that we are warned against from the founding fathers, So
Yep.
2012, 2013, somewhere around that, I think it was 2012, I started Police the Police, which is also an online organization that documents, police brutality. I am the founder of that. And at one point on Facebook, on the internet, we actually had the largest police accountability conversation platform anywhere on the internet. We had almost 2 million fans. And things were, we were right there with Cop Block. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cop Block or Cop Watch, but some of these organizations already had kind of built some of the groundswell, and we came in, and for whatever reason, just the information that we were sharing, the memes, the videos, really resonated with people online. And we became one of the, if not the biggest conversation about police brutality online. Now, that all changed in 2018 when Facebook and Twitter decided to unpublish and take down our pages and accounts both on the same day, within hours of each other, Facebook and Twitter. So some collusion there. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious, but maybe it was an accident.
We ended up losing around 6 million fans, and over about an hour or so, course of a few mouse clicks. And ever since then, we've been kind of putting together the pieces, putting things back together, trying to rebuild our foundation of followers and our organization. Before that point, we had a whole writing staff. I think we had 7 or 8 writers on the team. We had a social media team. I mean, things were rolling. We had a thriving organization, a thriving business, and the social media behemoths, basically took us down. Now, we could speculate as to why, but we are almost certain now. We've been kind of validated through a lot of the Twitter leaks and Facebook leaks that came out over the past couple of years with journalists like Matt Taibbi. Man, that's a very long explanation, but that's more or less the Free Thought Project and our story arc of where it's been, where it's gone, and basically where it's at now.
So the Police the Police was an outgrowth of the Free Thought Project. It sounds like there's maybe some crossover, or does the Free Thought Project focus mostly on other areas now?
Well, the Free Thought Project was always kind of a platform for all things government accountability related. And Police the Police was just strictly focused more on like the libertarian side of police accountability. The Free Thought Project did a lot of police accountability stories. I think we've written over 10,000 articles, over the past 10 years plus. But we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves with just the Free Thought Project, specifically covering police stuff.
I see. So with the Free Thought Project, of course, you were sharing the message of government accountability with people, which is huge in itself. Were there any areas or instances where you think there was kind of a big win, where maybe you were able to change some things in the way government operated or what was happening?
Yeah, there's a story of a gentleman named Roderick Talley. He was in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I know there's a handful of these stories that we've probably could, place on our belt as wins. But this one always sticks out. He had a raid on his home at the early hours of the morning. The law enforcement in his area was so aggressive that they actually blew the door off its hinges with explosives. The door, and this is all on camera, he actually happened to have surveillance cameras inside his house. He was sleeping on his couch. He had his dog right next to him. The door blew off across the living room, almost hit him. And of course, this was like 5, 6 guys come in, wearing costumes, uniforms, holding,
same difference,
assault rifles, and basically stormed his house. We were able to expose that story, and he ended up being detained. He was never arrested. Apparently, there was a CEO who was giving out some bad information, informant. And he was giving out bad information, ended up getting Roderick Talley involved in this case, which he didn't have anything to do with. And because we were able to put so much exposure on his case, a lot of the mainstream news started to pick it up and share it as well. And he ended up running for mayor of Little Rock after that because he had so much publicity and so many people were supporting him behind him. I don't think he ended up winning, but he's still doing things within his local politics. And because of that story, there was other people that the informant also falsely, I guess, ratted out. And they all ended up having their charges dropped and everything. So this ended up being a chain reaction. This was, geez, I don't know how many years ago now. This is quite a while. So I'm not getting all the specifics correct exactly, but that was one win that we felt like it was huge. We absolutely saved this guy from political condemnation, from any types of lawsuits. If he was going to be, charged with anything, we basically got this guy free and clear of all that. So that was a win for us. But to be honest with you, Jeff, like over the years, we've covered so many stories and we can't always place our finger as to like the effect it has on people. We just kind of hope that it's this kind of chilling effect that people understand like what's going on within law enforcement, that these police employees aren't necessarily what we've been told they are. And unfortunately, most of the time, they're the complete opposite. In fact, they don't have any actual legal obligation to protect us. So that was kind of more the impetus behind putting out the stories. And a lot of times they weren't exclusive stories. We were covering stories, secondhand, thirdhand from other news articles or news outlets and stuff like that. But we had such a intense focus on police accountability that we became the hub for all information that surrounded it.
I think it's important to keep stories like that, not only for a broader audience, but also to share them. And I think one thing that you contributed more specifically was not just saying, oh, this happened, but this happened and this is why, because the police have too much power and not enough accountability.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we have to kind of pick and choose and use your opportunities to plant those seeds when you can. And anytime we would put out an article, we'd always slant it in our own bias, which, people always say, well, I don't have any bias. Like I'm completely objective. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. We were always upfront about our bias. Our bias was always freedom, accountability, and peace. And those three things are kind of at the center of all of our articles. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. If there was an opportunity to kind of plant some seeds in the article, we would do that. And it would always be slanted towards peaceful solutions like voluntarism.
As it should be. And that can make a big difference in waking people up. I think we've seen the climate change overall more from just trusting the police to questioning the police with
Absolutely.
things like, okay, that's what they say happened. Let's see the footage. Where's the body cam footage? Why won't you show us that? And people having questions instead of just trusting. And I think that can make a huge difference to individuals, especially when these things come out. I think people who haven't been involved with the government or with the legal system have no idea just how horrible it can be, how it can just, even if you're not convicted of something, just being involved with it can absolutely ruin your life with the stress, with the fines, with the penalties. It's insane. It's not a justice system by any means.
No, it's a just us system. And I think you're absolutely correct. I think that's a lot of our MO is just kind of chipping away at that illusion, that indoctrination that has been so, widespread. I mean, one thing a government is great at is, indoctrinating people, especially children. And the more that we could hammer on that and really crack open that more of the critical thinking, the analysis, the observation surrounding law enforcement, rather than just this blind allegiance that a lot of people, especially on the right, tend to have, then we're doing our job. And that was kind of more or less always what our strategy was.
So how are things different now with Police the Police? Is it just more focused, or is it a different kind of thing that you're doing?
Well, to be completely honest with you, man, you're going to hate this answer, but Police the Police it's pretty close to being dead, unfortunately. Yeah,
What?
I still try to do what I can, but there's been a pretty large snowball effect, a chain reaction that stemmed from being deplatformed several years ago.
Mhm.
And as much as I'm trying to stay in this world and continue doing the police accountability thing, if I'm not, making money doing it, then I can't continue to place the energy, the resources into it. So
Mhm.
I'm still doing what I can. I still try to cover certain stories when they pop up. I'll still make some memes and videos here and there when they cross my mind. But to be honest, man, like, and anybody who happens to be listening to this is exactly why smaller content creators, smaller pages need your help and support. There's plenty of support out there for the Tucker Carlsons and Joe Rogans, but people like myself who've been trying to do this work, I'm barely keeping afloat. I'm barely getting by doing it. And we need support from the community. And I don't feel like a lot of people realize that, is that we're directly, I mean, there's other ways of making money, of course, doing this type of work, but we are directly, largely sponsored by our audience, the people who care about this stuff. And if we don't have that support, then it makes it very difficult to bring on other people to write articles, to do videos. I mean, it seems like you guys have a pretty big staff over there. So obviously you're doing something right, but it's been certainly challenging to keep Police the Police going. And one last caveat here is I'll also mention that ever since the George Floyd incident, there's almost been, as we were talking about right before we got on the call here, a different perception towards police accountability. Now it's more couched in this leftist movement. Even people who are on the left, if they see information like mine coming out, kind of challenging the institution of law enforcement and suggesting that we need to privatize it, well, that's completely off the reservation for them. Like, they're not into that at all. So they're not going to be supporting, advocating, resharing any of that kind of stuff. So I would say the narrative has changed pretty dramatically since 2020, and it's not necessarily in our favor. It almost feels like a lot of the media's interpretation of what can be done to solve police violence is strictly within government reform, and that's it. And so anything outside of the spectrum of that conversation just kind of goes to the wayside. Same with social media. I don't get nearly the same amplification, algorithms, any of that kind of stuff anymore that I once did. So in some ways, I would say that the people, the citizens on social media are kind of dividing ourselves too. And the media certainly helps play into that.
Yeah, I would agree. We've seen similar things at Voluntaryism in Action. We were really big, for instance, on Facebook. Then there was the 2020 with the virus, and of course we were against all of that, and our Facebook just plummeted.
Yeah.
And that makes it, all of our staff are all volunteers, but of course we need to keep money coming in to be able to get money out to help people.
Sure.
And that's all donations. And if you can't reach people, then they can't donate. Unfortunately, we've been able to break in more by going out to other social media platforms, starting to build up on Instagram more and more in the last few months. But even there, it's like you said, it's difficult because it seems like the mainstream media deliberately tries to split people up of whatever contentious issue. One of the most recent ones is the Israel-Gaza conflict.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of people who need help, no matter how you feel about what Israel is doing, if it's justified or not. Still, a lot of people need help. But then if you try to help them, oh, you're supporting the terrorists, or no, we can't do that, we've got to do this. And where it should be something that brings us together, people need help. Instead, it's splitting people apart. And it's the same thing with the police. Here, these people are being abused by the police, but people get split because of that. Instead of, they should be coming together to help people who are being victimized.
I would suggest that's highly orchestrated and highly intentional. And that's just the way that the media and the state, and there's plenty of actors behind the scenes. I mean, we talk about that all the time. There's disinformation agents. There's a lot of different people who are skewing the conversation. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, polarization is at an all-time high. I don't think I've ever seen it this bad. And so every topic has become contentious. Every topic is now slanted with some type of political bias or some type of political identity, you know. So it's become extremely difficult to talk about some of these things, which I think you and I both know that, hey, police employees are they're the strong arm of the government. Like, these are, if anybody, some of the people that we need to be keeping an eye on the most, you know. And unfortunately, the right just gives them a blank check. I mean, Donald Trump wants to give them full immunity, not just qualified immunity, but full immunity, right? And the crowds cheer. So yeah, things have become very contentious within all topics, even the topics that we're rightly justified and morally consistent, logically consistent on, as far as being aligned with freedom. That doesn't matter anymore. You know, it's the culture wars. That's all the rage these days.
One of our great social media coordinators, Callie, she wanted me to ask you about Cop City.
Sure.
So what
Yeah.
is Cop City? What's that all about?
Sure. It's a sprawling compound within the Atlanta. It's right outside of the Atlanta city hub. It's going to be a law enforcement training area. I believe it's 200 acres plus. And there's been a lot of pushback, mostly from leftist activists, which that's where I totally applaud. It's like, hey, you guys are the ones doing the direct action. Like, you guys are the ones going face to face with, you know, police employees in the streets wearing riot gear and stuff. Like, that's where I give the left credit. But the Cop City has been something that they've been working on, I think, for a couple of years now. I know there was even one activist who was shot and killed in the forest of Atlanta while he was protesting. I believe he was in the trees. Now, there's different reports and different takes as to what happened. Some people say that he had a gun. Of course, it's more of like the right-leaning media. But nonetheless, yeah, this is something that seems to be a really hot topic issue for a lot of the police accountability activists who are interested in not only just leftist issues, but things that are happening across the nation. And this is something that certainly concerns me as well, because this could be the beginning of more of these, quote, cop cities. In fact, I'm having a hard time placing it right now, but I did read just a couple of weeks ago that there's another one that they're building in some other part of the country. So yeah,
Well,
definitely.
but an ordinary person might say, well, training police is good, isn't it? Shouldn't we want them to have a place to train to be good police officers?
I mean, if that's the way, yeah. If we want to believe police at, you know, their face value, obviously they, you know, they lie incessantly, and it's something that happens all the time. I don't really have a retort to that necessarily, except for like, do your homework, you know, like pay attention. Whatever the police say, anything, there's some type of political motivation behind it. It's certainly not the actual reality, you know, of what's going on. But yeah, I would say it's something worth looking up and something worth checking out. And I wish I had some more info on it. It's been a little while now since I've been in touch with the cop watchers and police accountability activists over there in Cop City. But hopefully that's enough to get your audience a little inspired and checking it out.
Hopefully. From what I had seen online, it reminds me, what I have seen of diagrams of the complexes and plans for it, it reminds me of a military training facility.
Sure.
And that made me very nervous, because the kind of tactics that you would teach the military to do when invading a foreign enemy is not what you want the police doing in your neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, well, you know, these things already exist. I mean, in 2015, 2016, 2017, it might be closed down now, but we were reporting on a what's been akin to a CIA black site within the US in Chicago, Honan Square. I'm not sure if you ever heard about that, but this is a place where it was a big warehouse. Law enforcement were taking detainees. A lot of times they were keeping them off the records. They're keeping them detained for more than 24 hours. Sometimes there is even physical violence involved. So yeah, we had our own Guantanamo Bay, you know, maybe not to the full extent, but certainly something similar to it in the US. And it goes completely off the radar. I mean, it seems like it gets talked about by a few fringe outlets, a few fringe media companies, and then that's about it. That's all we ever hear about it. So, but yeah, these things are certainly happening within the US. And if you actually know about it or not is a different story, because the mainstream media isn't going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But yeah, these things certainly happen.
And that's really scary because I think one of the few things that keeps America together is the supposition that, okay, if the police come and I get arrested, I'll be able to have my day in court, the truth will be able to come out, and everything will work out in the end. And you don't think that it's going to be a KGB or SS thing where they come and take you in the night and you're never seen again. But it seems like more and more that's becoming a real possibility in the United States of America. That is,
Absolutely, especially with these things called the flock cameras. I don't know if you're familiar with the flock camera, but it's basically an automated license plate reader that they're putting up
um,
all over the place, and it's integrated with AI. So now if there's happens to be a license plate that gets tracked by one of these license plate readers, it sends a message straight to law enforcement if that license plate happens to be on a list. So we're seeing more and more stories now coming out about this. In fact, the Tampa airport, I think just 2 days ago, had facial recognition, recognized somebody. They're arrested coming off the plane. And don't get me wrong, for people who are criminals, like this seems like useful tech. It seems like something that's going to be advantageous for society. But when you start thinking about, well, look what happened during COVID. Look what happened during the lockdowns. If we happen to, I don't know, venture outside of our home, our dwelling, if there happens to be another pandemic or something, like would this tech be used against us? Certainly possible. And partner that with the digital IDs that are ramping up, CBDCs, biometric wall that both the left and the right support. I mean, we just saw the immigration topic kind of go through social media just a couple months ago, and that was a very, very hot topic. Nobody was talking about the fact that both Trump and Biden fully support a biometric entry wall. So that means that you're going to have some type of iris scan, facial recognition, something like that to go in and out of the border. This is something that both parties support. And here we are debating if immigrants should be coming over the border, which is an important issue. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, this is how they do it. These people are master chess players. They'll package it in one packaging while they're also pushing things, through in different various ways. So to me, you always kind of have to look beyond the headlines. You have to always look past the narratives, or, if police say, hey, we're just building a training center. Yeah, that's all we're doing. Like, right. No, it's going to go deeper than that. That's just the facade. That's the veneer that they want people to think.
yeah, and you have to remember, people think, okay, the police, they're going to enforce the law, and the law is good. But you have to ask yourself, what is the law? And the law is whatever the people in Washington want it to be. We saw, like you said, during COVID, all of a sudden the law was don't leave your house without a mask. Don't gather, don't go to church.
Yeah.
Very easily, the law could be if you have a gun, you are now a criminal and you're going to get arrested the moment the cameras spot you. And things like that are both really scary and really possible in the future.
These flock cameras, there's 30,000 of them. 30,000 of them up now across the US. And they're starting to partner with places like Lowe's. Lowe's are putting up in their parking lots. Kaiser,
Never liked
FedEx.
Lowe's. FedEx.
FedEx now has them on their trucks. And their trucks, I mean, this is all like information you could just easily Google right now. I know it sounds dystopian. I know it sounds a little scary, but this is all legitimate. So this is the society we're moving towards. And I do think in many ways that the 2020, the COVID, 2021, that was kind of a testing ground for a lot of this stuff, and I do feel like there is a lot of this backdoor tech being pushed behind the scenes right now that a lot of people just aren't paying attention to, that could very easily put us in a very bad situation sometime in the future. Now, some people say 2030, Agenda 2030, that's when all this stuff's supposed to be coming to fruition. But a lot of this, as you were saying, my friend, it's going to be centered around law enforcement's job to enforce it. And unfortunately, there is such like a fervor right now for law and order, especially with, Trump's rhetoric and stuff, that a lot of these people who are what we would think to be, halfway decent individuals who happen to be law enforcement officers will very likely be enforcing this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important that we have these conversations. That's why it's so important that we don't just vilify the individual wearing the costume, wearing the uniform, but the institution itself as the being the problem.
Yeah. And I think if people take a moment and examine politics itself and the government itself and think that, okay, you don't like the other side, whether it's Republicans, Democrats, whatever, they hate you, you hate them. But whatever changes you make into the government in another 4 or 8 years, they're going to have power and they're going to turn those weapons on you. I wish people would think about that more, but I think part of the system incentivizes not thinking about it, thinking very
Absolutely.
short term.
Very true. Very tribalistic, very much like team sports politics, and again, a lot of that is just couched in our identity, well, what are you? Who are you? Well, I support Donald Trump. Like I wear a red hat. Like this is my policy, this is my positions. And even if they get that far, a lot of times it's just more of the tribalism aspect. But yeah, there isn't a lot of critical thought, nor are we taught a lot of critical thought, through the government indoctrination centers known as public schools.
Yeah.
So, I guess it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I mean, they have us exactly where they want us. If we're not ever leaving that Overton window, that spectrum of conversation and political thought that they want us in, then, we're never going to be able to see the reality and the truth for what it is.
But ending on a bright note, I think that especially with the internet, more and more people have been able to wake up to what is actually happening. Some may be slower than others, but I think more and more people are able to say, whoa, something here is not right. And at the very least, I need to be more cautious. I need to find out some more things. And I think though the work you have done, both in the Free Thought Project and in Police the Police, has had a big impact on that.
Appreciate that, brother. I hope so. Yeah, I very much hope so. I've dedicated my life to this over the past 10 years. And, just to, leave on more of a humorous note here, I used to feel the same way until very recently. And I just made a tweet about this a couple of days ago. I'm starting to feel hopeful. Like after COVID, like things are looking up. Like people are starting to pay attention. They see the writing on the wall. They could read between the lines. And then the Kamala Harris campaign happened, and now I'm like, no, never mind. Like, never mind. I forget all that. Like, we're right back to where we were. I honestly don't think that's necessarily the case. And they wouldn't have to censor us if we weren't winning, right? Like, they wouldn't have any reason to continue to always make us feel crazy for talking about these things, or trying to have us self-censor through all the fact checking and all the stuff that they do to limit our reach. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, that should be all the more motivation to see how hard they're trying to stop us from this stuff. That should be all the more motivation to continue doing it, continue making those memes, start that podcast. I don't care if there's already 10,000 of them out there talking about liberty. Do it anyway. Maybe it's your podcast that resonates with one person. And, this is those, like we were talking about earlier, those seeds that you plant, wake somebody up, and who knows, they might wake somebody else up and talk to their family and friends. And that's how it's ultimately going to work. Because there's one thing I know for sure, Jeff, there is no political solution.
Yeah. For me, it's a situation of short term, black pill. I think things are going to get worse. Long term, white pill. I think long term, there's hope. Murray Rothbard said something like, liberty is going to win in the end because that's the only thing that's compatible with mankind's happiness and flourishing.
Yes.
No.
Boom. I almost feel like we should end on a Ron Paul quote, but that works. Rothbard certainly works. Stamp of approval.
That's true. What could we say of, for gold standard? There you go, Ron Paul. No foreign wars. Bring the troops home.
Oh no, he's done so much, man. That guy, yeah, he's going to go down in the history books as the greatest modern day liberty advocate I think that we've known in our lifetime. So,
well, I think that's in fact, he's a great example of what we were talking about. One guy, he's going to stand up and he's going to tell the truth. Yes. And how many hundreds, thousands of people were awakened because of that. And then they, in turn, starting, like you said, their podcasts and their blogs, telling more people, and that awakens even more people.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you can't stop the signal, right? They're trying their best. And I truly do believe that we're moving into the age of accountability. We're in the age of information now, but with the internet, with the decentralized information exchange, we're entering the age of accountability. And I think that's why they're doing everything they can to stop us. So we're on the right path. We just got to keep on keeping on. And don't get, too caught up in a lot of the negative side of things, the black pills, or, their intentional efforts to slow us down, because they're certainly doing that.
I agree, Jason. Where can people find you online?
Sure, man. Yeah, I'm pretty much on every social media platform you could think of, even the more obscure ones. But I would say the best places, the more of the mainstream social media platforms: Twitter, Jason Bassler one, Instagram, jason.e.bassler, and Facebook. I mean, I'm pretty much everywhere. So is the Free Thought Project. So is Police the Police. That kind of happens after they censor you. You just kind of cast the net really wide open and put yourself on as many social media platforms as you can. So yeah, just look for our name anywhere. Otherwise, go to thefreethoughtproject.com. We have our own podcast there. We've had a lot of great people, including Ron Paul on the podcast, Peter Schiff, Spike Cohen, so many great people over the years. So definitely check that out as well, guys. And as I was saying earlier, I know you just met me, but if you support my work, there's a donation and subscription tab at the top there. And I would like to think that, what we've been doing over the past 10 years is worthy of your donation. So please consider that as well, guys. But yeah, Jeff, thanks for your time, man.
Jason, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and go over to our website where you can offer donations, request help us help people who are in need voluntarily. And we'll see you next time.